We will begin by exploring the core components of PCIe and their role within a typical PCIe topology. After that, we will take a brief look at PCI and PCIe subsystem in Linux, which is one of the most widely used operating systems in embedded development. We will also introduce some useful Linux tools that assist, during the different phases of PCI and PCIe development. Then we will discuss different methods to interface with PCIe devices from user space and focusing on their advantages and limitations in various use cases. Finally, to tie everything together, we will walk you through a practical example showing how those concepts applies in real-world implementation. And finally, we will open a floor for a Q&A session where I'll be happy to answer any question that you may have. I hope this webinar will provide a clear and practical starting point for understanding PCIe, its components, and how to efficiently develop and debug PCIe-based applications in Linux. Okay, as you may know, before PCIe, we had a PCI that was a parallel bus that could be shared between different devices, and it was a parallel and synchronous bus, so it had separate clock on it, and also it had some limitations, of course, in terms of fan out and maximum speed that it can be reached in its parallel nature. And thanks to its higher speed compared to previous buses like ISA, and also its better software control by providing configuration space, it provides the means for plug and play configuration. So that's why PCI quickly became the standard preferred bus in desktop and some embedded systems. In PCI system hierarchy, each device on the bus can support up to 8 functions and all the sharing same bus interface for that device. We had a little bit of terminology that you may face when you read the PCI or PCIe specification. One of them is the meaning of transaction. In PCI or even PCIe communication, one side of the communication, we name it a requester, and other side is completer. The requester is actually a side of communication that initiates the requests. That request could be memory read on PCIe or PCI, or memory write or configuration request. And the other side that provides a response or acknowledge to that request, we name it completer. So requester and completer together provide a complete cycle of a transaction, in PCI and also in PCIe. And a requester, we will specify different part of the topology in PCI, but for now, you can know that the CPU or root could be requester. Also, any part of the topology, even the PCI nodes, also can be requester, and the other parts could be completer. In a PCI bus that, as I said, is a parallel bus, because had some limitation in terms of fan out. So to be able to have more devices, we have a concept of bridge. This bridge also, by a little bit difference, it exists in PCIe. So this bridge can provide another bus that connected to upstream bus, but physically isolated. So it can provide more devices on our topology by less problem in scalability and fan out issues that we may have in this parallel bus. Another important concept that's introduced by PCI, and also it exists in PCIe, is PCI configuration space. And to keep the backward compatibility in any operating system like Linux, and also implementation in device hardware, they follow the same structure for PCI configuration to make it more backward compatible. So even in PCIe, we have almost same architecture or structure for configuration. What is that configuration? In older bus, older devices like devices on ISA bus, to allocate address for each device, we had many hardware jumpers that you need to set before turning on your system. But from the PCI, it introduced the PCI configuration space. It's part of the PCI device. So any PCI device that want to support PCI or PCIe connection should provide its address space, that it's a couple of registers that should be implemented in PCI or PCIe device. And any position in that space had a meaningful value. For example, we have vendor ID, we have device ID, and status, and also important part of this, configuration space is bar addresses. So these bar addresses that any device could provide to the root of the system by introducing at least one of them or more bar addresses. These bar addresses are the concepts that can be memory mapped on the root of the system. So root of the system or any other devices can communicate with this device by reading and writing different addresses, starting from any base address. And each base address can have a specific range that is introduced by by a device itself to the topper layer. Okay, we will start to talk about a little bit about some terminology and some concepts in PCI and its components and hierarchy. Two concepts that it's good to know on PCI because actually to address the limitation of the parallel and synchronous PCI bus that we had, particularly its scalability and speed constraints, PCI Express was introduced as a serial-based communication. And like many high-speed serial interfaces, PCIe uses a bidirectional point-to-point connection, allowing it to transit and transfer and receive data simultaneously. So in PCIe, we have a concept of lane. So to be able to communicate between two sides of a PCIe connection, serial connection, we should have at least one link. And each link consists of one or more lane. And each lane of connection had a transmitter and receiver. So transmitter from one side, that receiver from another side, and vice versa. So having a link between two devices, each link can have multiple parallel connection. For example, we can have by 1, by 2, by 4, and etc. until by 32 for a connection of the PCIe. So having more lane at the same time for our link helps to increase the speed by interleaving the receiving and sending packets to the different lanes. Another concept in PCIe that you may hear about it is the generations of the PCIe. by times go on, we will have faster speeds on PCIe links that we named the generations. They specify the speed of the lane by giga transactions per second. This giga transaction per second, it's not actual speed of throughput or data. It's only specifies the maximum capability of the link to transition between 0 and 1. And this is the maximum speed that link can reach to that speed. For example, for Gen 2 PCIe, we have 5 giga transactions per second. So to have better understanding of what the maximum throughputs can be in one lane of PCIe Gen 2, we should use some simple formula. And to be more understanding of this formula, I'm talking a little bit about encodings in PCI Express. Actually, in PCIe, that is a serial protocol, we don't have the separate clock like what we had in PCI. So data and clock are sent through the same lane. So to be able for receiver to find the clock, it should latch to the part of the data and find the clock from the data and extract clock from the data. So in some scenarios, we may have some real data that all data on a bit are 1. So we don't have any transition for the other side to be able to latch. So one of the reasons that these encodings are chain is for balancing number of 0 and 1 in transactions, and also providing a possibility for receiver to extract the clock from the other side. For example, we have 8B, 10B. In 8B, 10B encoding, for each 8 bit of data or 1 byte of data, we will send 10 bit of transactions. We name it symbol. So our symbols are 10 bits, and for each 8 bit, we send 10 bits. We will add that overhead to our transaction to provide some balancing and also possibility of transitioning between 0 and 1s. So for example, for PCIe Gen 2, if we want to have some estimation about what is the maximum throughput that we can reach in byte per second, we just divide this 5 giga transaction per second by 10. That is our symbol length. So we will reach something like 0.5 gigabyte per second or 500 megabyte per second. And by this way, we can have some estimation of our throughput. Okay, to have a better understanding of PCIe topology, I use this very simple topology of PCIe system, and it starts by one CPU normally as a root of the system that provides the high-level control over the topology. And the next important part is a root complex. The root complex in PCIe may be, consists of one or more separate chips, but, together we name them root complex. What this root complex does is that from one side, it provides access to system memory or RAM, and from other side, it provides an interface to CPU, so the CPU can communicate to the PCIe fabric via root complex. So it provides access to the CPU. And this root complex is very platform specific, and it's difference between different platforms, for example, x86 or ARM or PowerPC. And this root complex from the other side, it provides separate connections, different number of connections that can connect to different PCIe endpoints and endpoints are PCIe devices, or it can connect to PCIe bridges or switches. And a little bit explaining about what is the switch and bridge and also endpoint, because as we mentioned, PCIe protocol is a serial connection, and it can communicate only between two sides of the connection. To provide more fan out for a PCIe connection, we're using switch. Switch can act as a packet router. So if it receives any packets, by looking at the target address, it can route the packet to the corresponding PCIe endpoint. And PCIe endpoints are our real PCIe devices, could be Ethernet, FPGA, or any device that we have in our system. And this address mapping from CPU to any PCIe nodes, it's actually created at the normally at booting time of the system. In that, CPU runs a specific process. We name it enumeration phase of the PCIe. In that, CPU using some configuration requests and will extract the topology, and it can discover all the PCIe components, including endpoints, switches, or bridges, and then it uses that configuration spaces to create a mapping. So, for example, if CPU want to send a read memory request to one of this device, it uses a specific target address, and that target address can be resolved by any switch that are in middle of the connection, and they will route the packet to the requested endpoint. And we also have PCIe bridge. A PCIe bridge is almost same with a PCI bridge. What it done is that it can provide a connection between PCIe topology and older protocols like PCI, parallel bus. Also, it can provide a bridge between PCIe and even different protocols like USB, like Ethernet. And this is what the bridge can do in our topology. We're talking a little bit about why the PCIe is important in embedded system because of its features that it can provide. Some of them are actually the low access latency, the first item. PCIe actually offers a low access latency, typically in a range of 100 nanosecond to 500 nanosecond, making it suitable in real time and high performance application that has a more demand actually in embedded systems. Also, another feature is common in industrial and FPGA-based systems. This PCI and PCIe protocol is actually widely used in FPGAs, industrial computers, and other embedded platforms that require higher speed interconnects. And so many FPGA vendors or many SoC vendors, they provide good support for implementing PCIe on their systems. And another item is supporting scalable bandwidths and link widths. This is very useful in a modular design that had a high demand in embedded system. For example, imagine you want to design a system on module for your embedded system. So you can design your SOM that include your CPU and your root complex, and you use a latest generation that you can support. For example, you will support a PCIe Gen 3 or Gen 4 by 8 capability for your SOM. But if you have older carrier board for your design, it also can work with them. For example, if you have a carrier board of the PCIe Gen 2 by 1, At runtime, it will be downgrade the link between these two, and it can be work. And even in your later and newer carrier boards, you can upgrade your generation of PCIe and even link bits. And this upgrading and changing, it's totally transparent from the software side. So it's make it very easier to upgrade your generation or the link width of your PCIe in the design. Another factor is hardware level reliability. So in many embedded systems that we need to guarantee the reliable transport, PCIe by its nature actually using the acknowledge protocol and also CRC checks, so it can guarantee the reliable data between the devices. Another factor is efficient DMA addressing. This feature, it actually enables direct memory access, that allowing the processor or any peripheral in a PCIe topology to efficiently access shared system memory with minimal CPU intervention. That can be helpful for faster and more responsive designs in embedded system. And other part is the versatile interface supports. Nowadays, we have many ready-to-use chips as a bridge that they can provide a connection to Ethernet, to USB, to Thunderbolt, CAN, or any other legacy or domain-specific interfaces. So these items makes PCIe very useful in even embedded systems. And here I want to give a brief examples of what PCI and PCIe interfaces we have in action in real world scenarios in embedded system. One of them is actually PXI, that stands for PCI extensions for instrumentation. This protocol and standard, it's actually using PCI and PCIe under the hood, but they provide a little bit different form factor of connection between cards and the system to make it more ruggedized and more resistant to the industrial noises. So this protocol can mostly used in measurement and automation systems, in that you want to have a fast and responsive reading of some high-speed sensor or communicate to some actuators. And other examples of PCIe in embedded system is systems that are FPGA based. As you may know, the FPGAs are very useful in projects that they can use as a coprocessor or I/O control. And because PCIe is very famous in this kind of systems, most FPGA vendors provides good support for PCIe communication, and using the PCIe protocol or interface in your design, you can have more clear and more reliable design in your system, and you can have better response time and also performance. Okay, here I want to talk a little bit about a hierarchy that we have in our Linux PCI and PCIe subsystem. Okay, in Linux, as the most famous most famous operating system in embedded systems, it provides a separate subsystem for PCI and PCIe. We have device drivers at the top layer of this subsystem that you can write your device driver, or you can use any ready-to-use device drivers that controls the logic of the device that's connected to PCIe, and it can use the APIs that provided by lower layer of the subsystem, for example, to reading or writing to configuration space of devices, getting information from them, or reading and writing to their bar addresses. And The other part of the subsystem is PCI core. And PCI core layer actually provides a common API and infrastructure for device drivers and bus drivers to abstract differences between PCI and PCIe. And we have a PCI bus driver. This bus driver actually provided by Linux itself. It can be used for enumeration phase to detecting the topology of the PCIe devices that connected to our system, and also creates a memory-like structure of our topology that can be useful for upper layers. And we also have PCI host and bridge driver. This, we can say this is actually a device driver for root complex that is platform specific, and different devices and architectures like x86, 64, ARM, PowerPC, and other systems have their own platform specific driver. Okay, we reached to a more, how to say, more practical part of our webinar. Now we want to explore what tools we have that we can use to get more information regarding our embedded system or PC-based system topology of the PCI Express. That is very useful for debug and understanding our system. One of them is sysfs. Sysfs, as you may know, is a pseudo file system. And in this case, the sysbus PCI part of the sysfs can provide information. And one of the most important parts of this pseudo file system in PCI is devices that provides links or symbolic links to any device by providing a bus device function address. This is a bus address, 1 byte, device address, and function address. And in many of them, you also see this 40. This is a domain address. We can say that domain is a number of root complex. Some systems, rare systems, actually have more domains, that they have separate connections or separate root complex in their system. So in most of the systems, especially in embedded system, you only have one domain, and that is a 0. And this pseudo file system, inside each device folder, you have some files. For example, vendor, device. These are actually some files that by reading these files, you can read part of the configuration space, as I mentioned earlier. For example, vendor ID, device ID, that they are part of the configuration space, and you can read them from this interface. And we also have resource file. Resource is actually can provide an interface to read and write directly to our bar addresses, and we can communicate with device that I will explain in our practical example. And drivers can show you the link to the drivers that used by each device, and we have other parts. Just to see a little bit about it, here in my system, for example, if I read that pseudo file system sysbus PCI, and if I go to devices, here I can see some symbolic links for each device and even each bridge that I have in my system. So if I go inside any of them, for example, the first device is this one. The device that is on the bus 0, device 1, function 0. So each device can provide different functions, but most of the device providing one function. If you see one device number with different function, it's a multi-function device that you may have in your design. So by reading inside each directory, that shows all the information related to that device. As I said, for example, here we have vendor, we have device ID. For example, by reading this vendor by using the cat command, here vendor, by reading inside the vendor file, for example, we see this number 8080, that is our vendor ID. And also by reading device, we can see device ID. And here is a little bit explanation of this pseudo file system. You can find more completed document for it. So in next stage, okay, another tool that we can use is LSPCI. LSPCI is a very useful tool to extract information from the PCIe topology, and it's very good for debug. And I myself personally prefer to use this command than using sysfs, because sysfs is more complicated and is mostly useful if you want to write automated script to handle your PCIe topology or extracting information. But this command, it provides more user-friendly information about your PCIe topology. Let me show you some examples. Okay, for example, here we have LSPCI. This command is actually part of PCIe utility that all the vendors like Ubuntu and even in your embedded Linux, you can add it to your design and use it. By using simply LSPCI, it provides a list of all switches, bridges, and all devices in my system. And to have a better understanding of the topology, we have different switches for this command. I cannot explain all of them, but some useful switches are, for example, -T, that shows tree of hierarchy. It shows the hierarchy of PCIe or topology as a tree. It's more understandable. And if I add another switch V to give more, verbose information, here I also can see the name of each device. Actually, where these names coming from is that, as I said, we have vendor ID and device ID in our configuration space. And if any creator of PCI device register its vendor ID and device ID, they can register themselves in PCI and PCIe community, and they will provide a database of names for their different devices. And Linux also have a list of that device list. This is why it shows any device name and what was the devices. By looking at this tree, you can see that we have a domain 0 because we have only one domain and one root complex in our design. And we have device 0. And in device 0, it specifies different devices, different buses actually. These buses, as I mentioned, is not a real bus. Because software layers of Linux are backward compatible and they implemented for PCI, to keep the compatibility, they didn't change the software layer. So even in PCIe, you see these buses. These buses are actually pseudo bus, or we can say virtual PCI bus. By using these bus numbers, actually software can keep track of different devices on our PCIe topology. For example, here, this 0 and bus 0 is a bus that is inside our root complex. In our root complex, we don't have actual PCI bus, but the software layers use this concept to explain the different connection that we have. And for example, we have device bus 0, device 0, function 0, bus 0, device 1, function 0. And in some places, you see we have another connection. This, in my system, in my PC, to show any PCIe slot on my system, software actually shows that slot as a virtual bus. So for example, here I have bus 0, device 1, function 0, and this is my PCIe slot. And then it connects to real device. And this device starts from 1, that this is a virtual bus number, and this is a device number 0, and this is a function number. So bus 1, device 0, function 0 is my device that connected to the PCIe slot on my PC. And by providing only bus number, device number, and function number, I can find my device in the topology. And to have more information on each device, this LSPCI provides some other commands like V that gives more information for any device on this topology. I will go through this more information when we reach to our example. So to have better understanding, let's continue our webinar. Okay, to be able to have one example and see one example in action and talk about different possibilities that we may have to communicate with our system, with our PCI device inside the Linux or embedded system. I used a simple and small development board. This development board actually, it's a Light Fury PCIe board. This company, RHS Research LLC, they provide this device. It's a very useful device if you want to have some test and proof of concept on your design. This development board actually have a Xilinx RTX on it, and it provides a PCIe Gen 2x4, and it uses a small form factor of NVMe. Is another form factor of connection for PCIe. And I used this design and I provided a very simple design on it that this device as a PCIe node, it provides 3 registers, 3 32-bit registers to the root complex or to the host. And these registers have one, I name it number A, number B, and sum. So writing to number A and writing to number B, it will store the sum of these two numbers in some register. So writing to this register and reading back from this register, you can have the sum of these two numbers. Because actually, this part of design is not a part of our discussion, so I try to make it simpler for our explanation. Okay. To be able to communicate with our device through the user space, we have different possibilities. One way is to write your custom device driver, as I explained in PCIe subsystem in Linux. And the other way is easier one, and I will explain which one had which pros and cons for using each possibility. One of the easiest way is using UIO PCI generic device driver. This UIO PCI generic is part of UIO subsystem of the Linux. And because many communications to PCIe devices is for reading and writing on different addresses as registers. So Linux provides this out-of-the-box device driver that is ready to use. So you don't need to write any kernel mode driver, and you can easily memory map the handle of this driver that provides, then you can use that to memory map that to your virtual address of your user space application, and then easily you can read and write any registers of your PCI device. In this example, I used that UIO PCI generic, and that will provide access by memory mapping, and then via this we can write our number A and number B, and then read the sum of these two numbers from the system. And let me show my example. Okay, it's a very simple example I provided in VS Code. In this example, we have a simple definition of addresses that we have, number A and number B. I will explain why we divided by 4, and we have sum. So in address 5000 hex, we have this number in 5008, and also in address 4000. To be able to communicate with our device using UIO generic device driver, here let me explain what we should do in our system. The first thing is that if you look at the information, this device that you can see, it's vendor ID 8080 and device ID is 6974. This is our Light Fury device that we have our simple design on it. And I used some unknown vendor and device ID because this is only for debug purpose. To have more information about this device in our embedded design, first we should see its more detailed information by using this triple verbose switch to provide most information. And then we have a S switch. By that, we can provide only one device address. What was our device address? The bus ID, bus number is 1, device number is 0, and function number is 0. So we have 01, 00, the device number, and .0 is our function. So this is a full information that LSPCI can provide to us. So if you look, this is our device information. I will try to explain some most useful part of this information. One of that is bar addresses. As you can see, I have region 0, so this is bar 0. It says that this device has a 64-bit address, is non-prefetchable, and size is 127K. And another region is this, is bar 2 actually. This is part of my design that is useful for some DMA and other parts. It's not in our discussion, so we just focus in this bar 0. And why it's wrote that it's non-prefetchable? One of the settings that PCIe device can specify is that accessing to this bar is prefetchable or non-prefetchable. For example, if this device wants to provide access to its memory via that bar address, it can specify as prefetchable. If it's specified prefetchable, means that writing and reading to that bar in Linux, then Linux and operating system will use our CPU cache. So writing to it is not necessarily means that that write is applied to your memory. This can increase the performance of read and write to that bar address. But if in your design, just like this design, we just have some registers that need to be write or read and need to be blocker when we're reading and writing to them, it's better to specify them as non-prefetchable in our PCIe design. And this specifies these two bar address are disabled. because we didn't load any device driver for this PCIe now. I will explain how to load our PCIe UIO generic, and then this disable will be removed. Another important part for debugging is that we have some specification here. First of them is, let me show you here, it's here, is link capability. Link capability is part of the configuration space of our device. Our device here is specifies the maximum generation and width of the PCIe connection that it can support. It says that I can support 5 gigatransaction per second, that is PCIe Gen 2, and it specifies that a maximum length is by 4. So it can support 4 lane of connection at Gen 2 speed. And to make sure if it's applied or not, we had another property that is important. It's link status. Link status means the actual connection generation and speed that can be different than link capability. Maybe my device can support Gen 2 by 4, just like this, but our root complex or host maybe cannot support Gen 2. So the link status will be downgraded to Gen 1. Or maybe I have 4 connection possibility by X4 of the Gen 2, but maybe my root complex only supports by 2. So this lane should be will be downgraded at runtime. So by looking at these 2 properties, now I'm sure that this root complex that is my PC supports maximum supported generation and also the width of the connection. And these are the most important parts that you can look, but in these other parts also are useful, but are more useful when you want to debug the hardware related issues on your design. So now we try to load our generic PCIe driver. In all the systems, including my Ubuntu system and even in your embedded custom Linux, we have a UIO PCI generic. This is a kernel module that provided by Linux. And this driver, you can find more information on Linux kernel website about it. It can provide easy access to the bar addresses of your device. So you can easily communicate to the bar, and it means you can write your whole driver in user space. It's make it easier, it's more maintainable, and you don't need to write your own driver. And it also can support normal interrupts, that legacy interrupt actually, that is a separate signals in PCIe bus that is not in our discussion, but it can support the legacy interrupts. But if you have more advanced interrupts like MSI and MSIX, or you want to handle, advanced DMAs, it's better for you to write your own driver. I will explain a little bit about it at the end of discussion. So first I run this command. It will load UIO PCI generic driver, and then I should bind this device that is my device to this driver. To doing that, you can see inside the documentation of driver how to bind it, but I will show you now. If you go to the sysfs of your system, you have sysfs and bus and PCI. Inside drivers, you see all the drivers that exist, and one of them should be, let me check, UIO PCI generic. This is the driver that we just loaded now. So if we go inside that folder, UIO, Inside that folder, you see some files. One of them is bind. This bind is a file that is useful to bind any device to our driver. And to do that, I should write echo command, something like that, to write to this file actually. And my device address is actually 1. It means bus 1, device 0, and function 0. And my device identification is 8080, and my device ID is 6974. So I write this vendor ID, device ID as a unique ID to this bind command. So I have 8080 as vendor ID and 6974 as my device ID. I write this screen. Okay, let's read to this file. Okay, I forget to put direction to write to that point. No such a device. Maybe I forget to write the correct. Okay, let's make sure. But I forget to do it here. And write the address. I should write echo to the new ID. Sorry, here I should use new ID because I want to add my device to the UIO as a new device there. Now it's done. So now if you look at the information of our device by using lspci command and using the switch that shows my device, sorry, lspci dash s and provide my address, bus 0, device 0, function 0. You can see that here something added. Its kernel driver in use is UIO PCI generic. So now that UIO PCI driver is loaded for my custom device. And here I see the name of the driver. And another thing that happens is that here we don't have disable anymore. So now the bar addresses will be accessible to my user space. So now we can go and run our example. So this is our simple VS Code project, is a normal C application. So here, to be able to access to our bar, we have in our sysfs folder, we have sysfs class UIO, because now when I bound my device to UIO driver, the UIO 0 is created. If you look at here, let's shell this class UIO, and inside UIO I only have one device, and that device, as you can see, it's bound to this address that is my PCIe device. So if I go inside this folder, I had some files, and one of them is inside the device. One of them is resource 0. If you look at here, I have resource 0 and resource 2. This resource 0 is connection to bar 0, and resource 2 is bar 2. That is not in our discussion. So we want to use a resource 0 to access to that registers. So here we open a handle to that device 0. And when we open the handle, then we map using the memmap. Actually, memmap feature of Linux, as you may know, it can map even a physical address in our user space virtual address. So writing to any offset of that mapped address can directly translate to transactions to that physical address. If I run this project in debug mode, here you can see that I already opened handle. And here I run mmap. In my mmap, I use null at the first parameter because I don't want to force this mapping address. I will let the memmap to allocate any offset in my virtual memory. Other parameter is bar zero size. So the size that I want to map should be the same as my bar size. If you see here, I already defined my bar size. It's 128K that we had here actually. The bar zero is 128K. You can find it by using lspci command. And here we use this side, and I used port read. So here that mapped memory will be readable and writable because I want to read or write to the registers. And I use the shared parameter so to be able to use that mapped address in any part of my process. And to handle, I use this handle that is handle to resource zero. So, and here as the offset, I use zero. So because I want to have a start of that address mapped to my virtual memory. So here the bar is on some address that it's already mapped in my system. So I show the address here because my system is 64-bit, is some 64-bit address in my virtual memory that actually mapped to that bar address. And to make it easier to understand, I just cast this address to a int32 unsigned because my registers are 32 bits, so I use this array to make it more readable. Now, by accessing any index of that array, I can read and write to any register inside this bar address zero. So now easily I can communicate to my devices through, with my device and PCIe bus. For example, here I want to read number 1 and then read number 2. As you remember, we had our numbers here. Number 1, number 2, number A, number B, and more precisely, I have number A in the address file and number B and also the sum. So here you can see this number A. This is why I divided by 4 because this is the uint32 array. So each element of it is 4 bytes. This is why I divided by 4 to make it easier using this array. So here I read number A, that is 0 by default, number B, that is 0 by default, and sum of these two numbers, of course, is 0 by reading that address. And I'm showing all the values here. Now I'm going to run a random number on number A. By writing to that address, I actually writing on PCI Express register on the, that bar address. So it wrote, another number is wrote. Now, if I read that numbers, number A changed, number B changed, and this will show the sum of two numbers. So if we print the numbers, we had this number as number A, number B, and we have the sum of them. So by this example, we found that we could communicate to our PCI device, any of its register, simply without any driver. So by using a user space application and also the UIO PCIe generic driver, we had communication with our device. Here I will show you some short discussion that why we should use this PCIe UIO driver or when we should use custom PCIe driver. They have their own pros and cons. One of the pros of using UIO driver is, of course, is simpler, faster to develop, and rapid prototyping, even before writing your real project. Reduced kernel crash risk, of course, because it runs in user space. It's don't have the crash risk, and also it's flexible control. And the cons is actually limited interrupt handling. As I said, if you have MSI or MSIX interrupts, to handling them, you have to write your own custom PCIe driver. Other cons is security and stability risk. So having that, because many applications at the same time maybe want to connect to the same PCIe and memory map that address in their virtual address, controlling the, concurrency of writing and reading, it's a little bit hard to handle. But because in most embedded systems, we don't have many applications that want to use one PCI device, so it's not the case in most of the embedded scenarios. And performance limitation for high-speed I/O. Maybe sometime we want to use a DMA or higher speed communication. So handling that by using this way, it somehow is possible, but it's harder to handle. And when we write our custom PCIe driver, actually its pros is actually its full control and integration. Of course, we have full control. We can read a configuration space and have a more flexibility in our kernel driver. It's optimized performance, of course, because reading and writing directly done in kernel space, and better security and isolation. For example, if you want to write a driver that only apply some rule on it and don't let somebody or unregistered people connect through the user space, you can apply that controls on your driver. And its cons is that, of course, it needs higher development complexity, longer development time, risk of kernel crashes, and maintenance overhead. Most important part is maintenance overhead, because when you write your PCIe driver, any upgrade to Linux kernel should be addressed in your driver, because many kernel upgrades change the interface of the device driver, and it needs to be considered. Sorry, I think our webinar takes longer than what we expected. And in last place, I provided a link because I already provided another, discussion and short, discussion regarding pros and cons and what we can do to handle our PCIe device in our Hexosys website. You can use this link to have more information if you want to go there.
Thank you so much, Iman, for sharing your insights and knowledge from the world of PCIe in embedded Linux systems. So if any of you have any questions to ask, you may please ask in the chat and we will proceed with the Q&A session. So anyone, any question, please proceed. You can send your question, you can type it in the chat box. If it's easier for you, you can even unmute yourself and speak and ask also. It's okay if you don't want to write in the chat box. You can even send it as a voice also. It's fine. Okay, so we have a question which says, how can we find out which predefined device driver is good for our design? So this is our question. I repeat, how can we find out which predefined device driver is good for our design? So now I'm handing it over to Mr. Iman.
Okay. Actually, the predefined device drivers, theoretically, we cannot use any predefined device driver because device drivers of the PCIe are very specific to that device. For example, if you have a specific device, definitely it had its own registers, its own register address, its own definition of the register address. Even, for example, if you have a device driver for graphic card or device driver for Ethernet card, different vendors of the hardware designers of that PCIe, they have different register addresses and different state machine and sequence to handle that device. Even for another Ethernet device, you cannot use that. The device driver that I talked about, UIO generic PCI device driver, it actually provides you easy solution to be able to memory map the bar addresses to your user space design. And generally, it's just a bridge between user space and PCIe hardware bar addresses. So you can use that because it's developed for that reason. But other PCIe device drivers are only specific to a specific device. So you cannot use that actually.
Okay, so that was a pretty insightful session. Thank you everyone who joined it and made this webinar a success. And again, a very special thanks to Mr. Iman Karimi for all the profound knowledge he has shared from his experience. Just in case you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And for any future webinars, please keep an eye on Hexosys LinkedIn and our social media channels. Hope to see you soon again in another webinar with Hexosys. Bye everyone. Have a good day.